So, over the last few months, we've been very fortunate to receive teachings from Geshe Ashitapke, who's considered one of the greatest living masters, at least in the Gelugpa tradition. Incredible knowledge, great scholar. And it's also just amazing because he's like 91 years old and he's still so vibrant and clear and sharp and giving wonderful teachings on text. It's one of the classics of the Nalanda tradition, Kamala Shila's stages of meditation. So, really wonderful teachings. And recently, in one of the classes, a question came up from a student, and I really liked the way he answered it, so I wanted to share it with a wider audience. So, the question was what to do when anxiety arises while one is meditating. And the person didn't specify what kind of anxiety and what kind of meditation they were doing. So, different possibilities. Um, so, because we had been talking about emptiness, that had been the topic of the teachings for, I don't know, a while now. So, Geshe started off saying, it's important to understand what is the source of our anxiety. Why is this coming up? It could happen when you're meditating on emptiness. And that strong negation could lead one to feel fear or anxiety. So it is said that when we're meditating on emptiness and we're trying to find our sense of I, there's a sense of a real, solid, independently existing I, and we're trying to, analyze that to see if it's really there or not. And people can sometimes kind of lose their sense of I, and then that can produce anxiety. Even the Dalai Lama said one time he was actually reading a text about the emptiness of the I, and he got a sense of that. He said he lost his I, and he said it felt like being struck by lightning. So it can be quite shocking to lose this solid sense of I that we've always had. So, so then Geshe-la went on to say, in that case, one would want to meditate on this side of existence, looking at how things are dependently originated. And so, we're meant to understand that, even though we can't find a solid, independently existing I, that doesn't mean we don't exist at all. It's not like a non-existence of our I, full stop. But it's just that kind of I doesn't exist. But there's still an I that does exist conventionally, meaning dependently. So, depending on our body and our mind and many other causes and conditions and factors, and just the label I. So he's saying, if you do feel some anxiety, then focus on that, contemplate that, remind yourself there is something there that exists. So he says, contemplating in that way helps to balance out the anxiety that can arise from meditating on emptiness. Then he said, but if it's a case where some worry or anxiety comes up that we need to address, it may be better to get out of that meditation and address whatever is going on in our mind, because it's not good to force ourselves to continue to meditate if we're experiencing some difficulty of body or mind. So I think there he was saying, it may not be related to emptiness, but there could be other reasons for feeling anxiety. Maybe you're worried if you turn off the stove, or, is my child coming home from school on time or something like that. So there could be other sources of anxiety that could come up when we're meditating. And so he says it's good to, look at that, understand what the anxiety is about, and, deal with that if there's something that can be done. And so again, he said we shouldn't force ourselves, but leave it for a little while and come back to it once we have addressed the problem. So he says, so it's important to identify what is it that we are anxious about, and then be able to work with that, whether it's taking a break for our meditation or using the proper antidote. So I really liked this advice because I think that because nowadays there's so much hype about meditation, there's lots of articles and newspapers and magazines and books and media and probably social media and all these apps. I've never tried them, but I've heard about them, apps for practicing meditation. And I think people might sometimes get this idea that meditation is a solution to all your problems. You just have to meditate, and then you'll be peaceful and happy, and everything will go well, and you won't have any more problems. So people might get a sense of pressure. I should meditate. What's wrong with me if I'm not meditating? My friends are meditating. Lots of people are meditating. I should do it too. So people may sometimes feel this pressure to do meditation, and also expectations. Yeah, it's very easy to get the idea that everything will go well if you practice meditation, and you won't have any problems. And that's very unrealistic because people who do meditate, I'm sure everybody here knows, it's not easy, and it isn't always blissful and wonderful. You can have different kinds of problems coming up. So like emotions, different difficult emotions might come up. It's not like our mind is totally pure and clear, and we don't have any negative emotions in there, or that our negative emotions are just going to suddenly disappear once we start meditating. So that's just not the case. So we do have things in our mind, negative emotions, disturbing thoughts, tendencies that we can encounter when we practice meditation. So it's completely normal that you might have feelings like anxiety or depression or anger or, different difficult things coming up in your mind as well as in your body. You might feel, physical pain, restlessness, boredom, and so on. And it's actually part of the practice of meditation, because meditation is all about transforming our mind. And to be able to transform our mind, we have to see our mind. We have to see what's there that needs to be dealt with, that needs to be overcome. And so we can't just expect that all that stuff is going to go away and we're just going to sit there and feel blissful all the time. So I thought Geshe-la's advice was quite practical, that if you feel anxiety or other emotions, he mentioned jealousy, said, look at that, try to understand what that is all about, and take a break if you need to, and figure out what the problem is, find a solution, and then you can go back to your meditation. But don't force yourself to continue. Because again, sometimes people might feel, oh, I just have to sit here and not move and not, do anything else and just deal with this problem. And that might not be the wisest thing to do. And I would just like to add my own 2 cents. I think that if you're not able to figure out what the problem is, like with anxiety, you might not be able to understand what it's all about, where it's coming from, or how to deal with it. Then it's good to check with a teacher. So if you have connection with teachers who are experienced, knowledgeable, reliable, then you can check with them. And in some cases, maybe it's even necessary to get help from a therapist, because, sometimes people have had painful experiences in their life, traumatic experiences that they may have pushed aside, pushed down, forgotten about, and then those can come to the surface when meditating. And you might not be able to deal with that on your own. So it's fine to seek help from a therapist. And also, I don't think it's good to force yourself to meditate if you find it too difficult, because there are other ways of practicing Dharma, other ways of having a spiritual dimension in your life, such as just being a kind person with the people you meet and interact with in your daily life, being generous, living ethically, avoiding non-virtuous actions, harmful actions, and doing good actions, virtuous actions as much as possible. Because I once met a man who came to see me, and he had a sad story. He said he really, really wanted to do some kind of meditation practice, and he had tried a number of different methods, and he had also tried prayer and yoga, and every type of spiritual practice he ever tried, he would have the same experience. He would get excruciating pain in his body that was just so unbearable, he would have to stop whatever he was doing. And then then he got depressed. He was depressed that he wasn't able to do any of these practices. He wasn't able to fulfill his wish to have a spiritual practice in his life. So he's really, yeah, quite desperate. And I wasn't quite sure what to say to him because I hadn't heard that kind of story before. But I thought of a person that I had met, a woman who was a kind of psychic healer. She had some natural ability and she'd also received some training. So I suggested that he contact her. And then later he told me he did talk to her. And she said something about how he had some kind of block or obstacle to practice meditation. And she suggested that he offer service, that he do the practice of offering service. And I thought, well, that sounds like a good advice, because when offering service to others, like doing volunteer work, helping others as much as you can, you're practicing kindness, and you're helping others. The people you work for will be benefited, but you will be benefited as well, because they say that when we're doing volunteer work, helping others, it releases endorphins and other hormones in our body that naturally make us feel good. And also our immune system will be better. So it's good for ourselves and also good for others. And then karmically as well, doing good for others, you're creating good karma. And I didn't find out later, in a more long-term sense, what happened to him. But I'm hoping that by doing that kind of practice for a while, he may have cleared up the obstacle to practicing meditation, and he may have been able to do meditation afterwards. So, I mean, doing meditation is great if you're able to do it. But maybe it's not the right thing for everybody. And there are other ways we can make our life meaningful and beneficial for others and also for ourselves. So that's just my 2 cents worth. If you find meditation too difficult, producing too many problems, emotional or physical or both, then explore other options. Find other ways in which you can have a spiritual dimension, a spiritual practice in your life. And hopefully you will discover one that works for you.